All right, my name is Nate Leathers. I am a San Diego native. I was born and raised in San Diego. College at Cal State San Marcos, went to the schools in San Marcos. And so the point of why I'm doing this is for one, people to get to know me a little bit more. I've got some feedback on my content, which I really appreciate because I love learning and having some humility. I enjoy the nice things in life, such as the plane and the helicopters and the cars. Some people are saying, well, that's all Nate's showing, right? And which I don't necessarily agree with, but you also have to accept the fact that the reality is if that's the feedback, that means that's perception or reality for certain people, right? So I hear you, and so we're going to make things a little bit more raw, and this is who I am. I would also push back on the people that do feel that way, saying, well, how long have you known me? Did you see all the bullshit I went through the last 15 years of my life? 18 years of my life with my beautiful wife Ashley supported me, where I was working at Enterprise Rental Car, fucking washing cars in a suit and then running up the street to park the cars, making 40 grand a year out of college. Probably didn't see that, nor did I expect you to, but everybody has a path. Very, very few people are born into having a Rolls Royce or a plane. And I definitely was not one of them. In fact, I was born in an underprivileged area of San Diego, which, there are areas in San Diego. Obviously, there's many other places in the country and world that are far more, but for my sake and my scenario, it was relatively underprivileged. Very low to moderate income family, single income with two loving parents, which was very supportive. But the reality was I didn't know what I didn't know, meaning Christmases with a couple gifts we were happy. We were a happy family. My dad dressed up like Santa Claus, and we thought he was Santa Claus when we first few years, right? And left the cookies and the milk out and do all the things. But when I wanted a haircut, I would literally have a bowl put on my head and it cut because they couldn't afford the haircuts. I don't think, and they might challenge me on this, my parents, but I don't think I ever had a new pair of shoes until I got my first paycheck working at a convenience store, Circle K, and got my first paycheck. They were all through garage sales. We are the coupon clippers, saving every dollar you could. And that was the way I was raised, which I have a lot of gratitude for that because I think that has definitely built a certain mindset that would have been functionally different if I was born into a lot of money. So I have no love lost for being raised in that environment like that. But when people sit there and say, oh, Nate's about his cars and planes, not to say it's a good reaction or a bad reaction, but my reaction internally is like, well, fuck you, you have no idea where I started, right? And that's okay. Maybe you shouldn't, which is why we're doing this type of content versus all the flashy shit all the time. So that's the basic short end of my story. I went to college, got into sales very early on, became hyper vigilant in becoming good at everything I did. I didn't just do the thing to do the thing. I was the best stalker that Circle K had in the Southern California market. I became a trainer for them. Then I started doing all the bank deposits. Then I started selling Highline cars and then started working commission only, and I just continued to elevate until I got into a point where I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars in my early 20s. In commission-based sales environments. At that point, I decided I'm working my ass off at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., going door to door trying to get, for Cintas at the time, trying to get uniform sales. I get a unique opportunity on, but I need to get an approval from one of my superiors because of the size of the deal and the pricing that I wanted to get moderated through that deal. Guess who didn't answer their phone at 6 p.m.? The person that should have, my boss, right? After a couple years of dealing with that, I said, I don't think this is my path long term because your superiors in corporate America should be the ones setting the example, not getting lethargic and lazy and drunk in bars. And so I decided to start my own business, and history from there, most people know, opened 8 or 9 different companies, exited 5 of them, made multiple millions of dollars, and I'm here where I am today. If people argue that money makes you more or less of who you are, I think there's some truth that it makes you more who you are. Although I like the nice things mean nothing to me if I don't get to have people experience them. The guy behind the camera can attest to that, knowing me for 4 months right now. And I don't go to, I can, but I don't go to dinners myself. I bring people out. I love giving people experiences. In fact, right after this today, we're going to go on a helicopter and fly and have a lot of fun. If it were me by myself flying the helicopter and not having any friends, it'd be a functionally different life that I just refuse to live. So people don't see that side of it, right? Because you can only capture so much on the social environment, social media. The upcoming content is one to kind of humanize me as a person. People get to know me. Most people that know me from a business standpoint know that I'm just a hard-ass business person. I don't fuck around, and I make sure that things get done in business. But if they get to know me as a human, they understand that it's significantly more complex than that. I just don't tend to show those cards to everybody practically because it requires a lot more energy and effort. And because I spend a lot of time putting an investment, my friends, I put a ton of effort and time into, significantly more than I think the average person, if I were to give myself credit for that. And so because of that, doing that for every single person is impossible. So people don't get to see that optic on me. They get to see that, damn, Nate's a hard-ass kind of asshole business guy, and that's okay. I'm okay with that frame of people putting that in me, because that's a derivative of why I've had some level of success. So again, the point is that there's a whole other side of that people need to understand, which is the human element of being married for 15 years, together for 18, having a beautiful 5-year-old. And the reason I'm doing all these things is, breaking the chain, the first line of defense. What I mean by that is, like, I was born in an environment where I didn't know what I didn't know, and although love was one of the main functions of our family, which is the same, I believe, with our family, the ability to write your own ticket, the ability to make the money you want to make and live the life you want to live, wasn't something that was preached. It was, you get a job, don't hate your job, but moderate your job, make your money, save it, invest it, retire. I chose that was not going to be an option for me, and wanted to do bigger things for my life. And that's not to diminish or beat up what my parents had taught me. It simply wasn't the way I wanted to choose to live my life. Constantly, and it's on my screensaver of my phone, I think about my wife and my daughter, and then I'm doing these things for legacy. Specifically my daughter, if I can give her a noticeable amount of money in real estate or whatever venture I'm in at that time, that's going to be incredible, but only if I can really instill the values of her as a human first. If she doesn't end up being a good person, one, I'll feel like some level of failure, but two, if she can't come and treat people with respect, have an immense amount of confidence for her as a young woman when she continues to grow, have the respect for the dollar, want to leave a certain impact on this world that's greater than the impact she needs to leave, is going to be more than just about herself. If she has those values that she can instill in herself, then and only then would we consider passing on very healthy financial legacy to her, because then she could utilize that to hopefully generationally instill those values, and then secondarily pass on some additional finances. And so that's the purpose of me doing that. I've learned to gamify things in life. I think it's a lot of fun. People think I work too much still for how much money I have. Yet I'm the one going out and flying today and having fun, and doing that on Thursday too, and on the weekends I have a lot of fun. When I work, and I don't fuck around. And I think that's where people tend to punch a clock when they want to in that scenario, and I just refuse to do that. If I'm going to work, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it on my time, and I'm going to respect my time, because as we all know, time is the most valuable thing you can literally have on this planet. And for the parents that are listening out there, I think you understand that that's even more critical with children in your life. That's me in a nutshell. Again, Nate Leathers, and so we posted some questions on social, and we want people to just get to know me a little bit more. All right, so we had a post the other day that basically had people have come an open forum for questions, and so we're going to go one by one right now on these questions. And so I'm going to start off by going through them, and then basically want to make this more of a personal thing, so people get to know me more as a human, versus, again, all the flashy crap that although I enjoy, is not who defines me. So this first one's funny. This is his name's Jorge. He is my Mexican attorney. For those that don't know, I own a home in South Baja. Me and my wife played like visionary exercises for a long time. We knew we couldn't afford a home on the water in San Diego, or didn't want to spend that much money, so we ended up buying one I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago in South Baja, between Ensenada and Rosarito. I wasn't about to wire multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars to some random title company in Mexico without being protected. By chance, I met this gentleman a couple years prior on a cruise at the bar, and he became my lawyer and is incredibly successful in Mexico. So he said, "When are you coming to visit us in Mexico and to share some tequila?" which is a very traditional Mexican exercise that they like to do, right? And so I'll be honest, I've done a pretty shitty job. I promised him I'd go out to Mexico City and see him numerous times. I think so I'm going to make a more concerted effort to do that. I want to see Mexico City, but with everything going on in our lives, no excuse, I need to do it. So to answer your question, very soon, it's something I want to go do, and I think me and my wife would thoroughly enjoy that, and we'll probably bring the little one as well. So appreciate you asking the question. So Jorge, we're coming out to Mexico City soon. I keep promising you that. I'm going to make the commitment. We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll have some tequila and probably some mezcal and enjoy some time together. So see you soon, buddy. So how do you build a positive mindset to be driven? Well, Ryan, it's always my go-to. The number one easiest way to do that is by surrounding yourself by the right people. If you surround yourself by the right people that are positive and growth mindset, it's going to be a forced function for you to be like that. Otherwise, you're going to be basically exiled from that friends group. And so you have to be really specific on being around those people that are going to drive you forward, and then have a visionary type of purpose, right? I know where you work, so if you're working there, I won't say it for sake of this, but what is the purpose in you working there? What is the long-term play? Are you trying to get to a point where you can retire by a certain age? Are you trying to go on certain vacations? Envision those things and know that now you have a larger purpose in what you're doing every single day, to the monotony of the day, day in life, if it's work or family, whatever it is. And I think being around the right people and being very, very intentional about that, and then having like a longer term vision of what you're objectively trying to accomplish, both from a finance standpoint and from, for in perpetuity, which we call infinite, is critically important for you to have that success. All right, so this one's from Irina. Appreciate you reaching out, especially since you haven't kicked your ass in tennis in quite a while. But favorite thing about being an entrepreneur? Favorite thing about being an entrepreneur is I am allowed to write my own path, although with the acceptance that I'm compromising time, either with family or going out or doing other things, for the ability to basically write my own path and make the life I want to choose without any other dictation from anybody else. I think that's an incredibly powerful thing to be able to hold and internalize in yourself. And once you start trusting yourself and having a ton of success, that momentum is unstoppable. So I think the momentum, the confidence, and the ability to leave a legacy on my choice, nobody else's, is my favorite part about being an entrepreneur. All right, Zion, he's like my younger brother. Maybe could also be almost my child at this point, the difference in age. What fulfills you? I know he knows this to some level, but fulfills me is relationships. I think it's critically important. My wife, my daughter, obviously first and foremost, my family. And then my family is both friends and literal family. And I think that the important part about that is having experiences and enjoying the process of life, both professionally and personally, is critically important to give fulfillment. And then we define things through the infinite game and the finite game, and I'm playing certain finite games to get to this infinite game, which partly is Longevity Labs here. I mean, that's a big portion of it. And so having that vision and knowing that I'm headed in that direction with strong intention, and gamifying and having an amazing time doing that at the same time, is everything that fulfills me. And then obviously treating my body like gold, working out, doing all the fun things at Longevity Labs with people that I love. I mean, what else would not fulfill you in that scenario, right? So very blessed to be that, and people like you, Zion, to be honest, and you know that in the Lucia family is a big piece of what fulfills me in my life. So love you, buddy. Thanks for asking the question. All right, the next question is from Strictly Irons. Any tips on starting a nonprofit 501(c)(3)? That's a loaded question, and it's very high level. It depends. The tips are what? Is it for a tax mitigation standpoint? Is it because you're trying to do it for philanthropy? What is the purpose and why you're trying to start it? I can tell you there's significantly more administrative paperwork and responsibilities to manage it, and if you manage it incorrectly, you can get in a lot of trouble. From a business standpoint, I think personally there's a lot of opportunity. Me and my wife want to open up a no-kill dog shelter. That's a 501(c). So you're trying to make money off of it, which obviously nonprofits, which is you basically take the profit out of the business. Are you doing it for tax mitigation, or are you doing it with philanthropy? And what is your intention behind the 501(c)? Once you can answer that, I could definitely give you more optics on what you're trying to get at. So if you're doing it for the goodness of your heart, first of all, we love you. Thank you for doing that. I think there needs more people in this world that does that. But I'm gonna give you some harsh truth here. If you're not good with yourself, both spiritually, physically, mentally, and then this is critically important, financially, where you can support yourself in perpetuity financially, I don't think people should be putting those types of things ahead of their financial goals. Why? Because one thing sets you back, you lose your job, you do something, and now all of a sudden you can't give the full attention to the 501(c) if you're doing it for the better good or the goodness of your heart. So be right with all those different categories. Once you're right with those categories, then go all in on your passion. Similar to what we're going to be doing for the dog shelter. We're very close to that in the next couple years or sooner. We're going to have it to a point we're going to rehabilitate humans that have been incarcerated as well as animals, and we're going to do that with basically not asking for anything in return because we're fine financially. So now we can go all in on the right intention there, which can get a little bit scrambled if you're doing that and you're not completely right financially. All right, the next question is from my good buddy and business partner, Mikey. What's something that people don't know about you that you wish they did? That's a good question. Full transparency, my gut response is nothing, because I truly go to bed every day knowing that I'm doing my best, so I don't have that. To me reads as if there's regret or things, and I don't have that. I can tell you friends that know me, especially ones that have given me this feedback, Ryan and Joe, you guys know know by listening to this are people that said we have to, they do it jokingly, we have to defend Nate a lot because people are like, man, he's an asshole. He's always in your face and intense and all these things. I wish people to actually know who you really were as a human, be like the compassionate part of you and the person that cares about humans. I could probably say if I try to take the ego out of that, thinking about it, it'd be nice to make that easier for people to see about me, but I also think that's kind of what makes me a bit unique is that I don't necessarily give that up because I put so much effort into my relationships. That I think the people that really then equally put their efforts back into it then really see that. So it's a hard question to answer. It's a very valid question, but I think, yeah, I mean, if I could basically give people a synopsis of my life like we're doing today in front of a social, where I'm more of a human versus this robotic, get after it, don't fuck around business guy. It'd be nice for people to see that, but I also don't feel a calling to have to like force that on people. It's gonna come natively through conversation and relationship. The next question is from the employee of the month, a good new but good friend. They call him Connor, but we call him Eric. He is a guy behind the camera. What is the biggest challenge you face in your life? It's a good question. I don't think of things that way, so I don't have like a specific, like I could say right now, I have specific family related issues that is a relatively large challenge that I'm solving with the support of the family. Just for clarity, I'm okay, the wife's okay, our daughter's okay. But we have family that's going through a lot of challenges right now, both health-wise and things that we're really focused on. So as it sits today, that's the biggest challenge in my life. I compartmentalize those things in different functions of my life because I think that when you're a teenager, you're going to make things a lot bigger. Like I remember just kind of top of mind, a girl that I really liked in high school, and I had a hard time, I was a late bloomer when it came to growth and, being interested in girls and all that. And so that became a really big challenge when you're young because you just didn't know any better, right? Then the biggest challenge when I started transitioning from making a lot of money in sales to become an entrepreneur is I was a fucking terrible leader. So I pushed a lot of people away and I didn't know how to grow a business and I just killed myself to figure it out. And that was an incredibly tough challenge in that moment. So, and part due to that, me and my wife had marital issues. A lot of it was due to my actions and how much I worked. So in that chapter of my life, all over, that was relatively short. That was a big challenge. So the specific answer is, as a whole, I can't answer that. I think it's an unfair question for me because I don't think that way. To me, challenges are almost, because I gamify everything in my life in my head, are maps or puzzles that I have to figure out. And so I don't look at them as like this negative thing more than I'm just going to figure it out because it's my responsibility. And that's partly why I was put on this earth is to be able to be a high-level problem solver and executor and do that with a lot of compassion and love. And so long-winded answer, Eric, but I think that's the way I look at it. All right, next question. This one's from Sam. Nate, do you actually think balance exists as an entrepreneur? Is it all in until you win? I've said this a few times. I truly, truly don't believe that there's balance when it comes to being an entrepreneur. I think they have an old funny adage about that saying, I quit my 9-to-5 job to become an entrepreneur so I can work 24/7, right? The reality is if you not a solopreneur, meaning you're the one person running your business, which is functionally different. But if you want to be an entrepreneur that you're going to exit for millions of dollars, which is what most people want to do, and or make really high cash flow on their business, there's no such thing as balance. You're just going to have to eat shit for a period of time and really kind of hate life, to be honest with you. And I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but this is the reality. And understand and trust yourself enough to know that you're doing that for a larger purpose. Work-life integration, even as you start becoming more successful in business, I think is important. Your family has to be involved in it. They understand. And again, you're selling the vision and the life and the goal and executing, so you're not lying to them about it, which I think I did a very good job at. I think almost anything I've told my wife I was going to do in business, and she agreed on it, so we are aligned with that, has happened, and I was refused to fail that way. So that's my thing. There's no such thing as balance as an entrepreneur if you want to actually exit and make the money that you should be making as a entrepreneur long term. All right, next question from Johnny. Thanks for posting that, buddy. Appreciate it. What is the hardest lesson you've learned about leadership and building a team? Oh, that's an easy question. I thought that everybody should be working 17 hours a day like me, and if they didn't, then get the fuck off my team. Why aren't you working hard? Then I realized the world doesn't turn that way, and certain people are more than happy being employees, which is, again, there's nothing wrong with that, and that they're not going to have the skill set or capacity or desire you have, which is why you're the entrepreneur and they are not. And so I lost way too many good employees in my first few years of entrepreneurship because you think I'm an asshole now, you didn't see me back then. And so learning that through actually paying for professional consulting, which took me a few years to get good at it, was critically important. And then you start realizing, give a shit about the human being. And I'm not talking about them just professionally. I'm saying, as a human, how are you doing personally? I would literally go up to people and say, I know your cat is sick. How are they doing, right? I've one short story on this. We had an employee at one point that came up to me one day, and he's Hispanic. And if you know that culture generally, not to make generalizations, they're very proud people. They use a term called machismo. And this individual came to me, and he was always really quiet and kind of kept to himself. And he came inside, and he was crying in my general manager's office with myself and general manager in a meeting. Long story short, his girlfriend was very vocally and partially attempting suicide. He had no idea what to do. He was young, and so in that scenario, obviously we called the police, we called the hotline, we did all the things that we needed to do to keep her safe in that moment. But then for a year plus later, we checked in on him weekly to make sure he was right mentally, she was right mentally, and then they were getting the help they needed. Fuck the work. That was not important. A human life was at stake in that moment, and for the foreseeable future. And he became eternally grateful for that moment, because I don't know if he had anybody else he could lean into in that situation. So leadership goes far beyond the performance at work, and it goes into the human element of just truly caring about the person. All right, next question. Sue sent this. When everything feels like it's on your shoulders, how do you deal with the stress? I think it's different for everybody, so I don't know if I can give advice that's going to necessarily support it. Well, that's not true. There's one solution to deal with the stress that's by far the best. If you exhaust the body, you tame the mind. One of my good friends, Dakota, uses that phrase because he loves that, those clips. But the reality behind that is, if you just beat the heck out of your body physically through exercise, it has to tame your mind to some standard. Aside from that, what works for me is I am very vocal and express my emotions outwardly with the right people, which is, again, the beauty of this Longevity Lab space. Is people in my office, they probably are like, man, you are intense sometimes, and you're too much, but they know that I'm doing that, and they're willing to accept that energy, because that exited energy, if you want to call it, allows me to then get back to my healthy central nervous system state to continue to be successful. Some people that can't externalize those things definitely need to find space to do that through other fitness activities or meditation. One of the best ways of doing it here too, if you really want to, is go put yourself in 39, 42 degree water. I'll tell you, nothing else matters for the first few minutes while you're doing that. So there's levers you can pull that really supports the behavior of managing stress, but you have to have the discipline to do it, and you have to have the ability to not care about what other people think. If you're in the moment, you need to express yourself a certain way. It's taken me a long time to learn that, but I do quite well with it. And so exhaust your body, tame your mind. I think that's what you should take from this. All right, this one is from Gilbert. What keeps you motivated on the days you don't feel like showing up? Arnold Schwarzenegger said something recently, well, not recently, but it's been on social more for me, which is he's like in his 70s, and people are like, why the hell do you still go to the gym? And his response is like, I don't know what that means. Like eating. I think he said something like that. Like, you just do it because it's the part of the deal, and it's not an option. I've trained my mind to a certain point in my life where, like, if showing up means, dealing with family bullshit, as I previously mentioned, where you don't want to, going to certain things I don't want to, or showing up to work when I'm like, fuck, I really don't need to do this. I just go fuck off today and fly or do whatever I want to do. The reality is that if I have obligations, it's similar to what Arnold said. It doesn't even equate to my brain that the other option exists. It literally doesn't. I got to go get these things done, so I got to get them done. And I don't like have like that negative self-talk in my head, like, oh, I really don't want to do this today. Like, working out, I can, but you just do it to do it. You work out 6-7 days a week. Professionally, it's the same thing. It's just, what would be the other option? And I think that level of discipline is something that's created over a long period of time, but it's also the trust in yourself that the purpose and why you're having that level of discipline affords you a certain life that is greater than most, and so it just becomes a standard expectation internally with yourself, and that's just what it is. So Caesar asked this one, why do you talk so much about relationships being more important than money? I mean, I don't like clips like this, but you know, they say your network is your net worth. I think that's cheesy, but there is some truth to that, right? When you get sayings like that or phrases, there's a purpose in why they've been utilized so much that they become normalized. And relationships definitely can make you the money, but more importantly, not that I'm Buddhist, but Dakota's taught me about this, and the point of like Buddhism, one of them is to reduce human suffering. That's the point of it, right? I think, don't quote me on this and beat me up on it, but Bodhisattva has like a saying that talks about that. The point of what I'm getting at is that relationships simply make the story of life and the process in which you live life significantly more enjoyable than if you're lonely, depressed, and not enjoying it. I have friends that are not even remotely close to as wealthy as I am, but have great relationships, and they're a little bit, I don't want to say simple-minded, but life is easier for them. It's just, things are easy. They have a normal job, and I swear, man, some of those people are the happiest people out there. And I think it's a derivative of the relationship they make, not the money, right? Money can frankly complicate things and make things more difficult. So you have to make a decision, and if you're willing to accept that, like I have. And so relationships, I think at a deep, deep level is what gives you the most fulfillment and desire and passion and enjoyment in the process in life if it's the right relationships, which is the most important point you need to take out of this. I think when you have those relationships, the money simply comes anyway. So, but if you have I can't tell you how many times I know a ton of people that have a ton of money and are very lonely and unhappy because has become a primary focus of theirs versus building a relationship and caring about the human. So this question's been asked by a ton of different people, including the guy behind the camera, but what does leaving a legacy actually mean to you beyond just building wealth? I had somebody challenge me on this the other day on a podcast, and it was interesting. He said, who was your third, like your great-great-grandmother, and what was her name? And I said, I have no idea. He goes, why do you care so much about legacy then? And I said, well, it's a fair question, but if my great-great-great-grandmother left the values, which I'm sure to some level they did, because my parents have, in general terms speaking, have incredible values. That's why I feel like my family and my siblings have turned out to be very good humans as well. Concurrently, if my great-great-great-grandmother made $50-100 million and that money was passed along with the values associated with the family, which our family generationally doesn't have that, I think that then lives would have been a lot different too. More than likely positive if the values were there. And so my rebuttal to this individual on the podcast was, just because I didn't know her name doesn't mean that her impact on the family for generations to come couldn't have been important. And I think that's, for me, what I'm trying to accomplish. If I have a $50 to $100 million estate, which I'm very comfortable will have in the next 10 to 15 years, if I do a good job as a father and as a human, as well as my wife does, which she was built for it, so that's a given. The impact we can leave on our daughter to then impact, if she chooses to, at a large scale, people and her family, irrelevant if they remember Nathan Leathers is the name. Those values, hopefully, when I'm long gone and 100 years from now, is still being left. I won't know that, but I can go to the grave hoping that that's what I did, and I did my damn best to do it. And I think that's what's most important for me. And if you can then supplement that with making life easier with money by then going into philanthropy or the 501(c) or the things that we talked about in the previous videos, you're setting them up for ultimate success. Again, with the values being by far the most important thing. So that's why it's important for me to leave a legacy and the values before wealth, but wealth can definitely, we all know that. If you're born into wealth and you are raised correctly, the impact, look at all the high-end politicians, not to say that they did the right things, or certain people that are born into wealth, they just leave a larger impact on this world than I can at this moment, simply because they had an advantage, which is fine. That's the way the world works. So I think I want to have the opportunity to do that for my family and generations to come. So those are all the questions. I really appreciate the people asking me that. I'm not really trying to monetize social media. Yes, I want people to get into buying some of the homes and doing all that, but I think that's just as much for them to win as it is for me. But more importantly, I want to leave an impact on this world that's greater than I can even imagine right now. And part of that is by people ask questions and they're truly curious about something. I'm actually, you can see as we did today, actually answering the questions for you guys and taking it serious. And so if you have questions about business or personal relationships, or not to say I'm perfect by any sense of those words, but I think that I have a good frame and optics that maybe you haven't seen or heard of before. I'm here for you, and much respect for joining on the social posts. And if you have any other additional questions, you can see we're actually doing it. We're actually answering it just a day or two later, and much love. Talk soon.